And who can forget the unusual effect that eating a mushroom had on Alice? So I reckon the more you think about it, the more you realise that we all have historical, cultural and religious links with magic mushrooms.
The reasons why I take mushrooms are sort of fairly well related to the way I live. It's for the same reason people probably drink or smoke drugs or anything. It's just some form of escape. Not that I would take mushrooms every day after I'd had a hard day's work. Not that I do.
They were looking for wildflowers, and we thought, oh, gee whiz, look, it just turns green and all these people come out, and look, they're all young people, isn't that nice? And it took us a while to realise that they were looking for mushrooms.
Well, one day we had a boy in here to buy something, and he was just turned 16, and he said he'd come off a fishing boat, and he said he would go and find mushrooms out Jay's Road, and that he would boil them. And blue fluid he would drink afterwards, and he would see psychedelic colours.
Oh, God. We jumped the road, jumped the fence again with all the goodies in hand, and got back in the car, sort of took off, and one of us sat in the back, cross-legged, in this sort of sedan type, no, it was a wagon actually, sorry, and had this little primer stove and started bubbling away, got some water and started boiling up these mushies as we were driving back on the road.
The fresher the better.
Yep, the fresher the better. So we put in what we considered to be a good serving, which is about 15 for three of us.
Yeah.
And within 10 minutes, the guy in the back was serving us some mushroom tea, and about 15 minutes later, as we were still driving, we started to like, it was like, I don't know, we were on a shuttle, or we were just cruising up and down these roads. I actually thought that we were driving through the belly of a snake.
Our main concern in relation to the mushrooms is the consumption of them. It is we've had incidences where people have had vehicle accidents.
Driving was really good because you didn't have to concentrate on anything. It was like, the road was good enough. It was like TV.
Yeah.
All you had to do was just watch and look at things. And every time a sign came up, like a sign saying "give way," we'd stop the car and look and go, "Give way, give way," and we'd spent ages working out what "give way" meant.
We've also heard of people being admitted to hospital, suffering all sorts of health problems, and also mental problems. There's all types of people do go down there, and it's just an influx of people to the area, some undesirable, and that's obviously of concern to the police.
By their cars, a lot of them are quite well-to-do. There are a lot of Volvos and Porsches and Commodores, and so they're not all young hippie-type people. There are a lot of people with young children because in the rubbish there are disposable nappies.
Magic mushrooms users tend to be younger, they tend to be a bit more curious, they tend to be a bit more alternative in terms of having, you know, I want to explore myself. And for many people, the use of drugs, rather than being a sort of a deviant and depressing experience, it's actually a way of exploring and understanding themselves. I mean, you can understand yourself by travelling around the globe, but you can also understand yourself by travelling internally.
One possibility is that they come down and eat mushrooms down here because they can't afford to buy Southwest wine anymore. $16 to $20 a bottle. You're not going to get very many unemployed people being able to afford enough wine to get high. But you certainly can come down and pick some mushrooms for free and boil them up in a bit of river water and have yourself a nice drink for the cost of a tank of petrol.
So are you suggesting that it's only unemployed people who come down here? I think that's leaping to a wild conclusion, isn't it?
Well, I based that on my observation of cars, that people that drive old beat-up cars are more likely to be unemployed than those that spend $40,000 on
Well, look what I drive.
I rest my case.
Mitsubishi Ute.
For some people, and one obviously has to look at the sort of the hippies of these, that was very much a culture which used LSD and hallucinogens with great enthusiasm.
And if kids today want to go out and get on drugs, I reckon they should be allowed to.
I think we've all learned that, you know, these drugs can be overused and that use can be damaging. But a lot of people still find that as part of their growing up, as part of their sort of exploration as a 17 to 25-year-old, use and sort of the broadening of experience that hallucinogens gives can actually enhance their understanding of themselves.
The great danger of attempting to collect the hallucinogenic mushrooms is the presence of little brown mushrooms that are actually deadly, the most famous of all being the Gallerina. And here is one of those that I've just collected. This is Gallerina autumnalis, one of the deadliest of the small brown mushrooms and one dangerously similar to the psilocybe. Notice the similarity of the colour of the cap. However, on turning it the other way up, you can see that the stem is uniformly brown, whereas it's a dirty white in the psilocybe. And the spore powder is a rust colour in the Gallerina, whereas it's the purple-brown colour in the psilocybe. This actually contains the same poisons as occur in the deadly death cap of the Northern Hemisphere that is responsible for 95% of all deaths from fungus poisoning. The symptoms of this poison are that one perhaps feels a bit queasy, something that one might dismiss after eating a few mushrooms, and then the symptoms disappear, only to reappear 2 or 3 days later in the most agonizing form while there's destruction of the liver and kidney. They are, in fact, extremely dangerous.
It's extremely difficult to identify magic mushrooms, and because they're illegal, there's no information available to help you get it right. And even if you find a reference for a picture of one in a book in a library, I often find when you turn to the right page, the picture's been ripped out. So people choose their mushrooms by trial and error based on word-of-mouth descriptions, which can end in disaster considering there are deadly poisonous mushrooms out there.
The deceiver. Stropharia. Gymnopolis pampianus. Foliota. Swillus granulatus. Pycnoporus coccineus. Gallerina, Mycena pura. Here's evidence that people have been picking in the forest behind us, concluded that they haven't got the psilocybe because these are in fact foliotas, and then dumped the lot.
Some people say that they should be illegal because they're dangerous. I'm not sure how dangerous they are. The only times I've had them, which are a few times, I've just been, well, there's been no harm done to myself or to anyone else because it's pretty hard to do much when you're basically just laughing the whole time.
I didn't feel any sort of like yearning for them afterwards. It was like a good experience that sure I'd have it again, but wouldn't want to do it straight away.
The use of any psychoactive drug has risks. There's no such thing as absolutely safe psychoactive drugs. In terms of its dependency potential, the interesting thing about hallucinogenic drugs is that you seldom see someone having withdrawal symptoms from hallucinogens. And the reason for this is that most people quickly learn how to get the maximum effect from their hallucinogens, and they do that by titrating the dose down, not up. So you don't get escalation of dose, which is essential really, I think, for some sort of unmarked dependence or withdrawal syndrome. So what you get people knowing that the best way to have a good trip is to use it in moderate doses. So in fact, with hallucinogens, less is more.
I remember being sick afterwards, but that was all gone in 15 minutes or so. No, they're not dangerous.
I think you might lose it for a while, but I don't think you'd actually die. Unless you were mentally unstable, of course, to start with, and then once again you could be in some trouble. But that's more a symptom of you than the drug, I think.
All of us are on some dimension from being absolutely sane to crazy. And the interesting thing about hallucinogenic drugs is that for some people, and I suspect they're down this end of the dimension, the use of hallucinogenic drugs can trigger a toxic psychosis or even a psychosis in its own right, and that is madness. The best example of this is that in certain parts of Glasgow, which in fact as you go to the outskirts of Glasgow in the autumn, you get a superb crop of magic mushrooms just growing up from Loch Lomond. And as somebody who worked in the local psychiatric hospital there was always, every year, as everyone flocked out to sort of score the magic mushrooms, there were always a few casualties from this in terms of very florid psychiatric symptoms akin to schizophrenia. Now, do these drugs make people schizophrenic? No. What I think happens is that people who are beginning to find their thinking becoming a little disordered, who are getting a bit cosmic in their overall construing style, find these drugs very attractive and rush in and take too much. And in fact, what you can have with any drug like this is this sort of psychological crisis. Interestingly enough, what you can do, you can manage these things relatively effectively. So what you need to do is to have a period of medication where people are tranquilized and calmed and reassured, and many people will recover from those experiences without any permanent damage.
Psilocybin, Samaritan host.